So thanks everybody for coming out. This is it's really wonderful to have so many people here, and I would imagine there will be people watching at home or watching the recording of this. I'm Jim Bachman. I'm the chair of the Conservation Commission, and with me up here are Shana Brogan, who was our conservation agent, as well as Karen Strauss, one of the other conservation commissioners. We are here this evening to talk about, or to have an information session about two proposed bylaws, and it's slightly confusing because they have a little bit of a different timeline. One is, better use this. Can you help me? There we go. One is the outgrowth of two petitions at the last town meeting that were passed really pretty overwhelmingly concerning some marine hazards that plastics pose. And if you could go, not yet. And the purpose of both bylaws is to take some steps to reduce the amount of plastic in our coastal environment. So this evening, what we're going to cover are why we should act, where we are in the process, what other towns are doing, what's covered in the proposed bylaws, and there's been a little movement in that because we have been getting feedback from town staff as well as boards and committees. And then the most important part is really the Q&A. So let's, oh, thank you. So as I was mentioning, the marine hazards plastics bylaw has a longer history to it. In fact, back in February, Karen came forward with a proposal to the Conservation Commission concerning that, and we were beginning to talk about it, and then we're beginning to talk with the Board of Health and the Select Board, and the thought was that there really wasn't enough time to move it forward for town meeting. And so it was put off for this year. At the town meeting in May, there were two bylaws that, as I was saying before, were passed, and but which were not effective because they didn't have any enforcement mechanisms in them, and they weren't passed as bylaws. So they weren't laws. In August, the Select Board determined that we should be prohibiting the use of plastic bottles on town property by the town itself. And in the time frame of November, Karen went to the Select Board to talk about the marine hazards bylaw, and they said, we'd like a bottle bill too. So that's when we all started to focus on what that sort of thing might look like. This past month, we did put together some finalized drafts and gave them to the town staff, the Board of Health, posted them online, sent letters out to businesses and so forth, because we were beginning a process. And I think I should emphasize that no one's late to the party because it's just beginning. At this point, the three of us really, as sort of subject matter experts in terms of conservation, have put together a proposal based in the science, what's going on, what plastics are out there, what are we finding on our beaches, and also looking at what other towns have done, what other states have done, and we're we're following through on that and presenting something actually tomorrow before noon for the select board to put on their agenda to have a hearing, because the process that we've adopted is for the select board now to have a hearing to hear from you. And the purpose that we have this evening is to make sure that we're all singing from the same hymnal, that we have a common set of facts, that we understand and are clear, and we've answered all your questions about what it is that the select board will be beginning to be looking at. And tomorrow, Monday evening at 5:30 is then your opportunity to come out and let the select board understand what your thoughts are about the whole thing. So I think I pretty much covered what that was. So over to you, Karen.
Okay. So
You have to hold it really close.
I think I better hold it in my hand,
Yes, exactly.
because I'm always told I'm way too far from the mic, even
You
at
are.
Conservation Commission meetings. Okay. So we've all heard about plastic in the environment, and we've seen pictures of the turtle with the straw sticking out of his nose and the whales with the plastic bags in their stomachs. And I thought first we'd start by going over a few facts about plastic. So I've got a long list here. I'm not going to talk about all of it. In the 60 years that we've been using plastic, we've generated about 8.3 million metric tons of it, which is an awful lot. And of that, almost all of it is still on the planet. Very little of it has been recycled or reused, and it exists as it has when it first was produced. So 6 million pounds of plastic bottles get thrown out every year, and only 8% of plastic ever gets recycled. Water bottles are a little bit higher rate at 29%, and aluminum cans at twice that rate. And I'll also say that plastic can only be recycled a couple of times before it is no longer able to have that done. In Massachusetts, we use about 2 billion plastic bags a year, or enough bags, so 250 bags per foot of our coastline per year. And that's a lot of plastic. And in Eastham, the transfer station last year collected 70 tons of plastic. This year it was, 2018. In 2019, it was 78 tons of plastic. So we're dealing with a lot of plastic in our town, and we'd like to address that. So I thought we'd go over what the other towns are doing. All 15 Cape towns have some sort of, so all 15 Cape towns have some sort of plastic bag regulation in place. The one in Eastham was passed last year by petition article and has no method for enforcement. So we're coming back this year looking for a way to follow up on that and put some enforcement in place. Massachusetts has been pretty good community-wise going after the bags. 135 communities now have bag laws in place, which makes us second only to California. And we know they're way ahead of the curve on everything. So for polystyrene bags, polystyrene ban, that's a tongue twister. It's been a little slower for the Cape towns to adopt that. Wellfleet and Orleans on either side of us have this in place. Last year we passed a petition article to ban that. Again, we're coming back to make that enforceable, and we'll be coming into line with our neighbors on both sides. Balloons. Now, you've all seen balloons when you take your walk, pick them up, trash on the beach, and balloons are something that we see in our marine turtles, and it does them some serious damage. So we're looking to join Provincetown and Orleans and Chatham and Nantucket and putting a balloon ban in place. And what that means is that you would not be able to buy a helium balloon or release one into the air. You could still buy a balloon that you could blow up by mouth, but that's about it. And then to the bottle ban. So 11 Cape towns have banned the municipal use of water in plastic bottles, including Eastham. And 7 Massachusetts towns ban all single-serve water in plastic bottles, including 3 towns on Martha's Vineyard. On Martha's Vineyard, the 3 towns also ban carbonated soft drinks in plastic bottles. And we're looking to join them.
I mentioned that we were getting feedback from both town staff and boards and committees, as well as discussing it within the Conservation Commission in our regular meetings. There were a few things that we felt that it was important to address, that are differences from what's on the website, which is what you've all had a chance to look at. One is that we felt that the 1 liter bottle was something that was both important to people, but also one that we weren't seeing out on the beach and so forth, and that it would be to try to match up what the problem is with what we're proposing, which is we've been trying to focus on really quite carefully. We thought it was important to bring it down from no less than 34 ounces to 24 or less. So that would make a lot of what people are using as the single-serve beverages that they're unfortunately taking to the beach or out and leaving there, that would still be something that would be banned, but not those larger bottles. In the single-use plastic bag, the one with the handles, we thought it was important to really focus in on that because that's what you all see floating out in the water. And so we felt that it was important to make clear that any old paper bag is fine, and that we shouldn't be discouraging people from using them as a substitute. So we would remove the provision that required a payment to the retailer of 10 cents. And you can see there's something about tailoring bags. We were in one of our meetings. Someone brought up, well, a laundry bag or a dry cleaning bag. A tailoring bag is different, but none of them have handles anyway. So, but that's a little refinement there. Much more importantly is, as I was trying to get across at the beginning, we have 2 different bylaw proposals that have been on very different time tracks. The marine hazards one that was passed at town meeting or is inspired by that, trying to carry through on that, had an effective date of November 1, 2020. So we were putting in November 1, 2020 for the marine hazards bylaw to try to keep things from being too confusing. We conformed the bottle bylaw to that, making it also November 1, 2020. And now we went, there's really not a lot of time for our businesses to, figure out what they're doing and implement that. It's not all that simple. They have to identify what solutions they think are appropriate for their business, and they need some a more generous time frame for that. So our thought was to still make them effective November 1, 2020, both of them, but to have the date when any fines would be issued or anything like that, January 1, 2022. So those are the differences that we will be communicating to the select board before noon tomorrow. That we would recommend that what's been posted on the website be modified in that way. So, who this applies to is, well, a lot of folks, as you can see, as well as every one of us in Please don't release that balloon into the air because we all know where they come down and what happens. But back over to you.
So let's talk a little bit about what's covered in the bylaws. In the plastic bottle bylaw, it covers plastic nips, which are alcohol bottles at 50 milliliters. It covers water bottles, that's drinking water, in bottles 24 ounces or less, and carbonated water and carbonated soft drinks that are sweetened or flavored, all in 24 ounces or less. It covers balloons filled with helium or any lighter than air gas. It covers plastic straws, the plastic carrier bags, and then it covers most polystyrene takeout containers, cutlery, disposable bowls, cups, plates, trays, of both polystyrene foam forms and the hard forms. And polystyrene foam coolers, those white styrofoam coolers that you're used to seeing, and packing peanuts are also included. So why these items? What we're focusing on is the plastic that we see most often in our marine environment. We're a coastal community. We rely upon these resources for recreation, for our economy, in tourists, in shell fishing, in fin fishing, and we like our wildlife. We've been told that over and over again in the strategic planning meetings, in every survey we've done in town. And the idea here is to reduce the amount of plastic in the marine environment. Plastic is a very durable material, which is why so many manufacturers love it, but it does not degrade very well. It doesn't disappear when we're done with it. We put it out in the marine environment, it doesn't biodegrade. If it photodegrades over an incredibly long period of time, and as it's doing that, it breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces that get ingested by everything from oysters to whales. It interferes with their ability to process food. It gets into our food chain, especially through things like oysters, because it settles into the guts of the creatures. So we wanted to ensure that we remove as much of this as we can from the environment. So some of the items that here's some pictures of some of the items that you wouldn't be able to have anymore. Those foam packing peanuts and styrofoam cups and the plastic straws, the bags, and so on. So let's talk a little bit about what can be used instead. So, or what is not included. Nips in glass or non-plastic packaging would still be allowed. We're focusing on plastic in the marine environment and not trying to regulate alcohol. Disposable plastic water bottles will be allowed in emergencies. If the state or local officials or the federal government declares an emergency, they can use plastic water bottles. If the health department declares an emergency, plastic water bottles will be fine. We're hoping that they look for other options, but we didn't want to hamstring them. Also, the fire department, rescue personnel, and other medical personnel making rescue calls, first responder calls, can use plastic bottles if they need to. Polystyrene and packaging brought from out of town and prepackaged meat and produce and eggs are allowed. We don't have control over that in any case. Foam coolers that are enclosed, where the styrofoam is enclosed in a rigid plastic shell, are still allowed, and you're allowed to reuse coolers and packing peanuts if somebody sends them to you. Balloons you inflate yourself are fine, but you just can't release them. And the same thing, government agencies and scientific research organizations will still be allowed to use balloons if they need them for their research. Okay, the Council on Aging and is exempted from the straws, as well as disabled people, because research showed us and conversations that other straws are not suitable for people who have drinking issues and mouth issues and such. So we didn't want to give anybody a hardship if they needed to have this. Meat in foam trays and emergencies, as we've discussed. Your newspaper will still come in the plastic bag, so it won't get wet, and dry cleaning, and you still can use vegetable bags in the store, and you'll get your fish still wrapped in plastic, and
Right.
what else?
Because none of them are carry-out bags with handles.
There you go. And it's very hard to find an option for things that are very, very drippy and wet. So for businesses, there are options. There are paper bags at the checkout counter. Customers can also bring their own bags. When it comes to the bottles, I think it's been a very big concern of people that they won't be able to get water anymore at the store, or they won't be able to buy it. Somebody said orange juice. So in bottles, we're first of all not addressing the non-carbonated beverages at this time because, again, that's not something we're finding very often in our marine environment. As an alternative, water already comes in aluminum cans. There's aluminum bottles with resealable lids. Major companies like Pepsi and Coke will be bringing out Aquafina and Dasani in cans, and in Coke's case, in a resealable aluminum bottle by the end of the year. Glass bottles are available with soft drinks. Most of them already come in cans, and some come in glass bottles. There's just a lot to unpack in this, and we understand that there's a lot for you to listen to as well. So when we talk about the polystyrene, the options might include paper, recycled paperboard. I'm sure some of you have seen these items already as you dine out. Some restaurants have in the Eastham have swapped, and our neighbors, Wellfleet and Orleans, have already implemented a ban. So there's wheat stalk fiber and plastics made out of sugar cane and plates made out of palm leaf, aluminum, polypropylene, which is a different kind of plastic that recycles very readily, and we haven't seen so much on the beach, and reusable cutlery and plates. There's also wood and a growing number of other products. Balloons, we're asking people to be creative. You can use reusable banners, whirligigs and pinwheels to celebrate, paper streamers, and things like that. And coolers, I know everybody likes their styrofoam coolers because they're light, they're easy, but we're asking you to switch to compostable coolers made out of fiberboard and other things. You can use recycled cardboard boxes, and there's eco-friendly insulation, some of which can be turned into fertilizer for the garden or mixed with water and becomes benign and can get washed down the sink. Okay, so here's some pictures of some of the alternative products that are available.
Just move on to the next slide.
So here's some pictures. So we're asking you to take your plastic bottle and switch to an aluminum as a preferred one. There's also paper cartons and glass bottles. But if you want to buy water at the store, there are still packaged products that are available. You also could bring your own reusable water bottle and fill that at a tap. And there's a number of bottle filling stations around town, and more are coming. Carbonated soft drinks, again, the plastic bottle is easily replaced by a can. Some products come in glass. Coke offers theirs in small aluminum bottles. So we're not asking you to not have your soda or not have your water at the store. Just think about the packaging that it's in and to change it to something that is more sustainable for our marine environment. And there was some concern on social media and elsewhere that we were going to be taking away these small bottles of juice and sports drinks and milk and so on. These products are not included in the bylaw. We're only addressing carbonated soft drinks, water, and carbonated water.
give you a chance to catch your breath. So as I said before, what we're looking ahead to is immediately is the first public hearing on this, which will be on Monday, 5:30 at Town Hall. And then, of course, if the select board decides to go ahead with a proposal to present to town meeting, then it would be on the 4th of May, where, as you probably know, a bylaw needs a 2/3 vote to pass. We have decided to recommend to the select board at least that any penalties under that bylaw not be imposed until 2022. Next, oh yeah, we're now to the most important part, which is the chance for you to ask your questions. We do have a couple of microphones up here. I think we'd prefer if you would use this one. It's not quite as tricky. You don't have to stick your mouth on top of it like you do with the library ones. If anyone has any questions, please come up and let us hear from you. If you could identify yourself, please. Uh-oh. What? Okay, well.
Good evening. I'm Amy Ekman. I'm the chair of the select board, and thank you all for your presentation. I just encourage everybody to. We've gotten a lot of letters. People have, let us know what they're thinking, and our goal isn't to put anyone out of business. I know some people, think we're just trying to be really hard on the businesses, but what we're really trying to do is reduce the amount of plastics, like they presented, and. I know last night at the ConsCom meeting, there was some talk from Gary Senecal about maybe chopping these up further. That way each thing sort of gets its own look at town meeting. And so we're probably really going to be looking into that maybe on Monday night.
That's your call.
Yeah. So I don't really have a question, but I'm just saying we welcome everyone's comments and, come to the meeting Monday night and let us know what you're thinking. And we are listening to everybody, so I hope you come.
And
Or
pointed
send letters,
questions
too.
are always welcomed, so.
Hello. Okay, sorry about that.
I'd like to be able to look at everyone. So first of all, I'd like to, as Amy acknowledged, that's Gary Senecal, and I have two other colleagues of mine from Sustainable Practices here, Susanna Nickerson and Mary Cody. Susanna's in Chatham, and Mary is in Sandwich. You noted earlier on one of the slides that 11 towns on the Cape passed a municipal plastic bottle ban. That was through Sustainable Practices, and I'm the executive director. I'm out of Brewster. We are filing in the other 3 towns currently. We have one outlier, which is Bourne. If you know anybody in Bourne, we'd be happy to meet them. The municipal ban, just to give a little bit of brief background, covers town purchase of single-use plastic bottled beverages of any kind, and it also eliminates the sale of beverages in single-use plastic containers on town property. The reason why I'm bringing this up is that particular bylaw was one that we did across the Cape, and we did it on purpose, because when you do something sometimes in just one town, it can have unfortunate repercussions across the Cape, because it may preclude the ability for that to actually be enforced all the way around. And that's one reason why I'm bringing this up with regard to the water portion. And I hope you don't mind, because we're very much in favor of the water. But we have filed a bylaw here, which we have already filed in 12 other towns, specifically looking for the retail sale of single-use plastic water bottles that are less than 1 gallon, that are non-carbonated and non-flavored, to no longer be allowed to be sold.
Excuse me, I thought this was question time.
It is, but I think they're also allowing comments. Are you not?
Actually, it is question time as opposed to comment time.
Well, I do have a question related to this, but in order to do
Well-
that, I have to provide just a little background.
If you could just try us with the question.
Yes, the question I have is specific to the fact that this particular bylaw, because it only is limited to 24 ounces now, would be inconsistent with the other bylaws that we have filed. So from that perspective, it would create a disconnect. And I was wondering, in terms of your own desires and interests here, would that disconnect be of something of value to you? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Since it's a question, I guess my answer at least would be that we're concerned about Eastham and what our retailers would be selling here, what the whole town is comfortable with in terms of that. Again, that 2/3 vote is a pretty formidable standard. So 2/3 of us, what do we feel about it? Are we comfortable with the burden? And it certainly is a burden that would be on our retailers, because this is it's a complicated issue, and I mean, to me at least, it's not something that has to be uniform across the Cape, because our retailers, I don't believe, are having businesses, in so many towns they've become confused about what the standard is. Mr. Russo, you have a question.
I do. I'd like to know what we've done to approach our legislators who are convinced that we're going to, Massachusetts is going to be end up with a zero carbon footprint in the next 10 years. Have we approached them on underwriting something like this statewide, so it doesn't have such a devastating effect on the local retailers? And just given human nature, I think you'd agree that people will find the easiest route, and we might, as individual citizens, agree, sure, we won't buy bottles under such and such a size and whatever. And we'll be careful with the bags that we'll use reusable bags and things like that. But to think that it's going to not affect our retailers, which are very fragile, I think is not looking at the whole picture. And I just want to know if anything has been done with approaching the legislators and making them, do the work that we need done for all of us, and doing it statewide. And then you'd have real results.
Yeah, I would have to look to a member of the select board to understand what the town has done, if anything, in reaching out to our representatives on this. As far as taking things to the state level, I mean, I personally think that it's crazy not to have all this at the state level. However, I also understand that the governor has promised a veto of the bills that are now pending at the state level. So that leaves us on our own, I believe.
And
Well,
I'd also like to address the plastic bags. In Massachusetts, we have done plastic bags community by community on the Cape. Every town has a ban in place. Eastham voted on one last year. When you look at the plastic being collected in the beach cleanups, the one run annually by the Coastal Zone Management Agency of the state, they put out a list every year analyzing what was collected. Last year, there were no plastic bags on the top 10 list. In the previous years, bags had been on the top 10 list of plastic collected at the beach. So one can imagine that the local laws that have gone into place, and there's 135 of them now, have actually been having some effect.
Yes, please.
I have two questions. One.
I'm sorry, could you identify yourself?
Oh, hi, I'm Suzanne. I'm Suzanne Bryant. I'm also on the Tea Time Committee, in case you were wondering what my face looks like. I was wondering if you had talked with other, I know a lot of towns and committees, they'll talk to each other, so I didn't know if perhaps this bylaw might catch on in Wellfleet or Orleans, or if there was any regional interest other for specifically for the bottles or the carbonated beverages, because I understand the bags are already a thing in the region, but I was wondering if there was any interest in other towns in banning nips and banning carbonated beverages. And then the second question is, what legislation that you just referred to is the governor thinking of vetoing more specifically?
Let's start with what the governor's banning, or not signing. At the moment, there's a bag ban law that has been passed by the state senate. It would institute a 10-cent fee on bags, with 5 cents staying with the merchant and 5 cents coming back to the towns. And the governor has said that these kinds of bills, he believes it should be done at a local level, that communities should set the standards of what they would like to have. There is also a straw ban that has been pushed out by the Environmental Committee at the State House that will be, I believe, coming up for more discussion. They've talked about polystyrene, but have not put together a bill yet, I believe, and I think that's where we stand at the moment. The state has not addressed these issues over time, which is why local communities have come in with their own bylaws. So the decision is to think about whether we want to wait until the state comes up with a statewide plan and we have a governor who is on board with that, or do we want to act now because the plastic is in our marine environment and causing issues?
Hi, I'm Nate Nickerson. I own Arnold's Restaurant, and we go through an awful lot of plastic everything. Couple of questions. Does this include knives, forks, and spoons, plastic?
Yes.
The straws, are there suitable replacements for straws? I haven't bought any straws in about 9 months that'll work and not fall apart. Do you know what they are?
I have no idea, but Max does not use plastic straws.
You can buy like cornstarch straws that don't break apart. Greenware is a business that you can buy them in bulk.
Good.
And you just can't use them in heated drinks, but like, when drinks out of a straw.
Okay, we're losing our functionality here of the microphone. That wasn't your fault. If somebody has something that they would like to, they have an answer to a question that Karen or Shana or I don't have, please hand up and we can provide you with a mic.
So I'd like to say that the Nauset Green Club is in the back with alternate materials, and they have a lot of information about these issues as well.
Well, I'm in favor. I'm in favor of the plastic ban. One of the questions I have, is this bylaw set up? What if there's, I don't think you'll delete any of these, but what if down the road you want to add more? What's the process? Are you going to have to go through all this just to add a couple more items that might be beneficial to add?
Yes, we would have to amend the bylaw in a public meeting with a 2/3 vote, but the crowd would probably be smaller. The crowd would probably be smaller. It was an attempt at humor. Sorry.
I didn't get it.
That's quite all right.
I'm sorry. Not smart enough. Okay, we have that. I also, we recycle everything we possibly can. It's crazy. We have these big oil containers that, for the fry oil, big plastic containers, like 5 gallon.
Next question.
Yeah. Maybe that'll be one you'd add on to it. They'll just have to find another way of getting us oil. The other question I have is, I understood that you are going to be able to have plastic straws, maybe I heard this incorrectly, but you couldn't offer them, but if someone asks for one, you can give it to them. Is that true?
Yes. They have to say, I need one because of some disability.
That I need one because of a disability?
Yes.
I have to check to make sure they have a disability before I give them a
No.
straw?
If they tell you that, then you can give them a straw.
Okay. But I can't tell them a straw there, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't have the straw dispenser out, but if someone asks, could I have a straw, you can give them one.
Okay. That sounds good. Well, good luck with this.
Thank you very much.
So I have a question. I'm Sarah Wilcox from Eastham Superette, and I'm sorry if I'm shaking, but I'm very threatened at this moment, as is my business. So voters approved 2 petitions at May's town meeting in 2019, which I approved as well. I voted for them, and they included plastic bags and polystyrenes. And then now I have a letter from Amy Ekman saying that the select board has, to carry out the voters' decision, the select board is drafting 2 bylaws to be placed on the town warrant in May. How is this following their decision when you've also included items that I sell, not only plastic bags, which take my plastic bags, and also in the petition last year, the plastic bag article states, we have begun to do outreach. I have not seen anyone until Amy Ekman showed up at my business yesterday and I wasn't there. I have not been asked a question by anyone from Conscom or the town selectmen. And it also says, we are committed to creating a thoughtful and comprehensive bylaw that will protect our resources and not prove to be a hardship on our businesses. I would like to ask you how we got to this point from 2019 to what is now being proposed, and how do you think that this will not provide me with a hardship as a business person in our town?
Okay, thank you. This isn't really the end of the process, it's the beginning. The 3 of us were more of a technical committee, pulling something together that the select board could then reach out to the public with, and to get your input. I know I've read the letter that you sent to them. I thought it was really helpful. And you put an enormous amount of thought into this, and yeah, well, I can understand, because it's very important, and I certainly wouldn't minimize the reasons for your concerns. It's a lot to grapple with. I do think that your comments are really helpful. I think there are people in this room as well who may have other suggestions for you, or who are willing to work with you. These haven't been passed at town meeting. They haven't even gone through the select board yet. So there's plenty of time for you to reach out to them.
What other town in Massachusetts or the United States have you found that have done all of these things at once?
We haven't looked for that.
I have. I haven't
And
found
the
one
answer
yet.
is 0, I'm sure.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
Oh, my guess would be that it's biting off an awful lot at the same time. Right.
Good evening. My name is Pat Turriello. I have a few questions. I am a little concerned about what is being presented, so I did some research. And I found it odd that we're going through all of this, and the town does not have a recycling bylaw. Could you ask me why we do not have a recycling bylaw?
Go ahead.
I'm asking the question, why don't we have a recycling bylaw? I am actually encouraged that we have 78 tons being taken out in 2019. I'm still trying to get that data from the town. I haven't been able to get it after 3 days of calling, without a bylaw that says we must recycle. So I'm really encouraged that we have, citizens here who care about the environment, despite the fact that we don't have a bylaw.
There's a state law.
But we don't have a town. So that means that if somebody wants to be irresponsible and dump garbage and recycling together, we don't have a mechanism for stopping that. Don't you think that's where we should start? Okay,
The-
we all have
well-
opinions, but I mean,
Yeah, I mean, the issue isn't that it's, you would like to speak? You would like to?
Give it a crack.
I have another question.
As
Okay.
Karen said, there is a state waste ban on recyclables. If you look at the transfer station, there's a list of all the things that are banned to go in basically in the garbage hopper. The problem with plastics is, while we're recycling, how many, 78 tons? There's no market anymore. So it's not being recycled. It's just being probably put into blocks somewhere and stored or thrown in the trash. Because it costs us now as much to get rid of it as it does trash. And so that's sort of the push for a lot of this, is the market collapsing. Now, I understand, I'm going to jump in on answering a little bit of Sarah's question before you come back. The NIPS, I mean, I get it. I went in yesterday and looked and did a little inventory, and they said about 1% of their sales are glass. The rest is plastic. And so I understand that's a huge hit. So just to ease your fears, and you're Leslie, right? Yeah. That I really think the NIP thing probably should be broken out of that big bylaw. Well, we can have it separately voted on. If people really want to do it, give it a crack. But I don't think it should be I don't think we should throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think we should try to get some of these other things in that we have more control of. Because, you look at that little recycling triangle, and it's reduce, reuse, then recycle. So we're trying to reduce, and hoping people will reuse and use their own bottles and things. But recycling really is the last thing. So, and there's no market for it anymore. So, we don't want to kill anybody's business, obviously, because we have very few.
Maybe you should just strike the whole second bylaw that you proposed.
Well, no, because it does cover a lot of the other polystyrenes, the styrofoam cups and all those things. So we'll
No,
talk
that's
about
the
it more.
first bylaw, it's just the
We'll
bottom
talk
bylaw.
about it
Yeah,
Monday
the bottom
night.
bylaw,
Yeah.
If you just strike that, you wouldn't hurt anyone's business.
Well,
Just saying.
we'll talk about Monday.
Yes,
Okay,
we will.
you had
My next
another
question really is a business. By your own accounting here, it looks as if businesses weren't approached until December of 2019, a month ago. Has there been an impact analysis on what this is actually going to do?
That's,
A true
that's
impact
why,
analysis.
that's why we're encouraging you to go on Monday evening.
But it takes time to put an impact analysis together, a true one. So if the businesses weren't contacted by your own account until December, this is January, that doesn't even give time, that gives no time.
We weren't contacted until January.
Okay.
And first, we were contacted by the Cape Cod Times.
So, why? I mean, obviously, you've been working on this for a year. Why weren't businesses contacted? And I don't own a business here, so I'm just very concerned about them. The other thing, when you opened, sir, today, and I was pleased, you said that you're all subject matter experts. Could you please release your credentials on this, on what are your credentials on plastic recycling and mammals? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Kevin Plum. I own the Town Centre package store, Town Centre Wine and Spirits, along with my wife. Has the issue of littering been addressed here? It seems like you're using a hammer to crack an egg. All that plastic on the beach is getting there because people take it on and they just leave it. Has there been any consideration of more recycling bins at the beaches? Signage encouraging people, if you take it in, take it out and throw it in the bin. The biggest success of the last decades has been this reduction in smoking. That was not done by banning cigarettes. It was done by public education about the dangers of smoking. Can't we do the same with these plastics? I mean, I see people in our parking lot throwing the wrappings from their cigarette packets that they didn't buy from us because we don't sell cigarettes anymore. Just throwing it out of their car window. I go out of my way to go out, pick that plastic up, and return it to them. I give them the benefit of the doubt. I say, the wind obviously blew this out of your hand. And the guy I did it to last week, his mouth dropped open in astonishment. I mean, has this been considered? Fines for people on the beach that leave trash behind and encouragement to put stuff in recyclable bins. Thank you.
Thanks.
I mean, that's the question. Has it been considered?
I would have to turn to the select board.
It's already illegal. I don't know what, I mean, we can
stand
over people and, you know.
Give them a ticket, fine them, publicize it, put a sign.
The, I,
Containers out year-round.
I'm sorry, this got a little out of hand. I mean, those are all really good things to be pursuing. I suspect that it will take multiple things to address the problem adequately. There is a anti-littering law on the books in Massachusetts that's enforceable by, town police officers, the harbor master, almost any town official, I think. $5,000 fine. It doesn't have a great deal of impact.
Is it being enforced, though?
I have to say, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, let's see.
And I think it's a very good question.
I've seen
I hope,
articles in the paper when tourists are being fined $5,000 for littering our beaches, and then maybe they think twice about it.
I hope you bring that forward on Monday, because I do think that it's a multi-pronged approach is the best way to get at the whole problem.
May I speak?
Please, yes, you're,
I'm Susanna Nickerson from Chatham. I'm visiting. But thank you for allowing me to speak. It seems to be an education issue here that I know I'm an Aquarian, so I'm a little ahead of the time sometimes. But I think plastics are not biodegradable. So every time you buy a purchase that's plastic, and that goes from everywhere from clothing to boots to glasses to everything.
Ms. Nickerson, I'm sorry, do you have a question?
This, I do. Thank you.
Please get to it.
So, that plastic will be on the planet forever. If it's burned, it causes toxic chemicals, which affects our breathing and the health of our children. And the question is, what kind of education have you put forward for the voters? Because there seems to be like a space in between where you are and they are education-wise. There needs to be more education about what plastic is and what harm it does to us as humans and our wildlife, which suffers terribly. It's going fast from all the plastic that's everywhere. And everybody who's spoken is correct. The trash is everywhere. But the real solution is not to purchase the plastic in the first place. And the
I'm
question
keep
is
listening to that as well.
I'm asking about the education.
Yes.
Like what kind of
excuse
education?
Me, ma'am?
Yes.
I think you've really ventured into a speech as opposed to a question, and
That is my question.
Thank you.
Are you
Thank
going
you.
to answer me, though?
Of course.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll wait for your answer.
Education is always an important part of things. Though we don't have an education campaign on this, I don't think that in this community there's a lack of awareness of the problems of plastic. I think that uniformly across the town, people are aware of this. It's not like it's a new problem or one that people aren't aware of. I think what we're here to deal with is the practical implementation of how we go about trying to make sure that we're not worried about, what's in our waters. So, I mean, to Mr. Plum's point, yes, there's a lot more littering, but I think people are aware of the issue of plastics.
Thank you.
And we also do have a document on our plastics bylaw page on the town website that reviews the research and data about plastics and bags and polystyrene and its production and the issues in the marine environment. It has a long bibliography if anybody wants to go and read the original source material. And we've also produced a document that takes the bylaw and simplifies it out into its components that we'll be making available shortly.
Thank you. I hope people will read that and agree with you.
Thank you.
I find your
Next.
comments actually insulting. I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't understand what the negatives of plastic. I just hate to be preached to on something so important and so obvious. It's not necessary. I don't like being preached to.
I have a question. Did you mean for retailers in Eastham to become vilified by others in our community?
Oh, absolutely not.
Because, yes, and I heard when I got up and said I felt threatened, someone said, good, you should.
Well, that
Yeah.
is something that we should not have here.
We don't support that.
I didn't hear that. Mr. Nickerson.
I just want you people to know that I'm really against styrofoam cups. And do you want to know why? No, you know why. Because it lasts forever. Still on this planet, always will be. My question to you is, what happens like when I get products coming in that are wrapped in styrofoam? Is that legal or is that illegal?
Yes.
It's legal?
Yes.
Okay.
You don't have to force your suppliers to
Yeah,
change
okay.
what they're providing you with because you can't.
Okay. And there is a recycle center somewhere in Natick or whatever for styrofoam, if we get enough of it. There's a place that takes it and chews it up and does something with it. I don't know, but better than putting it in the ground. The other thing I'm sad about is that I think you should immediately have a fine for styrofoam. I don't think you should need to wait for anything. I mean, styrofoam, paper cups, the place down there, I won't mention it, tons and tons of coffee cups. I don't know where they're going, but if they'll keep it that way till they're penalized financially.
Okay, but one of the things we'd like to do is to keep this being more confusing than it is. I think one of the questioners commented on how ambitious and complex, and we're perhaps taking on too much. We're also taking on too much if we are too fancy with treating things differently.
Well,
that's why
this is easy. It's either
Yeah.
fine them now or fine them later.
Well, we're proposing to the select board that they find them later, beginning in 2022, to give the businesses time to adjust across the board for everything, as opposed to picking and choosing which ones would come in when it would just be too complicated.
Well, I disagree with that. There's no big deal of taking your styrofoam cups, sending them back to the paper distributor, and buying paper cups. In the meantime, 2 years, you're going to have thousands and thousands and thousands of styrofoam cups.
If I may suggest, make those comments on Monday to the hearing.
I should go sit back and sit in my seat.
Thank you, sir. Next question, please.
I'm Joy Brookshire. We came out on a really cold January night. Where's the rest of the Conservation Commission? Why aren't they here to hear our comments?
There's a number of them who are here. Yes.
Would be nice to have them sitting up front so that we could talk directly to them when we ask our questions. I have well water. Suppose my well water isn't quite up to snuff, and it's going to be a long time before I can hook up to town water, and I am forced to buy water, lots of water. If I buy my water at the Stop and Shop in Orleans, or any of those other drinks that will be prohibited, are you still going to recycle my product if I bring it to the transfer station?
Yes.
People assume when you recycle that the state helps to defray the cost of recycling. We do not get hardly any money back from the state of Massachusetts for all of those 5 cents that we pay on bottles. How will you take care of that?
How will we take care of the loss of revenue to people who aren't getting their 5 cents?
I don't think there would be, because we're switching from plastic containers to aluminum containers, which are still the 5-cent issue.
Right, and the plastic water bottles aren't 5 cents. They don't. Well, okay, yes.
I just think that more thought needs to be put in to this. I think the businesses support your efforts somewhat if they're not, if they're here and they know that they're going to be impacted. I think you have to be sympathetic to their feelings. And it would be nice if you ask the businesses who are going to be impacted to work with you in writing up the bylaws.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question, please come on to the microphone.
You can probably hear me. Noreen, come to the microphone. We have property in Maine, and Maine has updated their bottle bill like years ago. Okay, too short. They updated their bottle bill years ago, including water. For whatever reason, our legislators have not updated our bottle bill. I mean, when they did the bottle bill, there was no water sold in plastic
You mean
bottles.
the deposit?
Yeah, there's no deposit on water bottles. Also, Maine also has a 15-cent deposit on wine bottles, which wine bottles go back in, you get the 15 cents back. I also know that the Troop 83 here does a lot of recycling, which we now know that the plastic isn't really going to anything good, but the glass certainly is, and they do recycle. They get the 5-cent deposits back when they do the recycling. So couldn't we, if nothing else, get the legislators to update our bottle bill, which they should have done 20 years ago, and they haven't done it yet? If Maine is not exactly a hotbed of progressive thought, you know, let's face it, it isn't. But Massachusetts is behind on that. And I also wonder, is a question for you with the liquor, the nips, are they sold in glass as well? Not many?
A minority, about 1% of the nibs are sold in glass. The vast majority are in plastic, and there is no alternative.
And there should be. That's something your distributors, we need to call. That's, okay, then the other question I have is, and that's about the nip bottles, is no deposit on nip bottles, is it? No. And if there was a nip bottle, I mean, I walk, and I can't tell you how many nip bottles I find, you know, when I go walking. They're everywhere. If our legislators would at least we can use that money for something, right?
Okay, treating that as a question.
Okay, so that.
I mean, I think there are many people who would agree with you that there should be a very thorough look at the state level at all the bottle deposit stuff, because it's insane, first of all, that it's a nickel, and secondly, that it's restricted to the beverages it's restricted to.
With bubbles. They have to have bubbles. That's what I told my staff when we were recycling with the motel.
Right. So, yes, so we would love the state to be doing things. It's not.
Just put something on the floor of
I'm
the
sorry,
state.
could you grab a microphone?
Yeah, sorry, it's not a question, but Randy Hunt just put his bottle bill for NIP deposits just went to the floor on the 22nd of January.
And that's for 5 cents.
For 5 cents,
But
yes.
not for water bottles.
No.
And there should be.
If you're talking with him, could you ask him to make it a bigger deposit? Next question, please. Sarah?
My question is, how many is a lot of NIP bottles? Because in the town of Eastham, between the two retailers, the Superette and Leslie and Kevin's business, we sold over 200,000 NIP bottles in plastic last year. So what percentage have you found on the side of the road?
Well, I don't know. That's a lot of nip bottles. But, yeah, but yes, I'm sure everybody in the room, when they're out for a walk along the road or at the beach or something, you do see nip bottles everywhere. But but it's, yeah, percentage-wise, granted, it's probably pretty small, but there. Next question, please.
Could I just make a
Please,
brief
come on
statement?
back
It's
up.
not a question. My wife and I have dogs, and we walk them on the road, and we're as horrified as everybody else at the nip bottles strewn along. I mean, I detest it. I think we should first start with the 5 cents, but I just want you to know we're as horrified at the refuse that we have sold. We understand it, and we hate it too.
I think it was your wife wrote to the select board.
Yes,
It was
yes.
a tremendous letter, thank you. It was very, very thoughtful, very helpful. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it was terrific. Really appreciated that. Next question. People aren't wearing down, are they? No? Okay. Well, hearing no questions, I thank you very, very much for coming, and please go to the select board hearing on Monday. And I hope you feel that you're at least better informed about what's on the table.